Hey, hi, hello! My name is Arie, and welcome to Fox Dots. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about Klonoa Door to Phantomile, which is the first Klonoa game in the entire series. And I've had the absolute wonderful, spectacular pleasure to play the game for the first time this past month. But before we dig into the game itself, I want to talk about my history with the series. Nothing that intricate, but I feel like it's a good way to kind of get my footing here before just kind of jumping straight into it. So here we go. Here is my former history with the Klonoa series. I basically had none, and why I wanted to note it is because uh, it's a bit of a phenomenon that I've had with other game series that I eventually saw exist in my general vicinity in life, and then over time become interested and then just kind of get into it later on. This happened most notably with Metal Gear Solid. I grew up with Smash Brothers Brawl, so I saw Snake and I was like, "Oh, he's a silly guy, a little silly man hiding in the cardboard with his, grenade launchers and whatnot." So I didn't know what the hell a Metal Gear was because I was so Nintendo pilled, no internet for the majority of my childhood. So I I just thought it was like an obscure Nintendo thing. Oh, okay, yeah, Metal Gear, sure. Then again, I'm the same person who thought that Sonic the Hedgehog was owned by Sonic because of the same idea of, oh my gosh, Sonic and Smash must be Nintendo. I knew that Microsoft and Sony also were in the gaming landscape at that point in time, but I didn't really know the intricacies of that. But that's a whole other thing for a whole other time. Klonoa, in particular, I heard just very sparingly throughout the years. When I did have access to the internet, I would hear, "Oh my gosh, Klonoa is so cute. The gameplay is fun. Great story. Play the series, please, please." And I would just be like, "Okay, I'll write it down." And I have this big list I have, and I still keep up and update it to this day of games that people or the internet at large or just in general recommend to me, and I want to eventually play those games. Um, and I've been doing a pretty great job branching out from just the Nintendo pool and trying out a bunch of different series the past couple of years, most notably Mega Man and Metal Gear Solid. So there you go. I finally got around to doing those. That was quite interesting in their own rights, but Klonoa never really stuck out to me in that kind of way, but I randomly stumbled across Ant Dude's Klonoa retrospective video. And, I like Ant Dude, been watching him for a good handful of years, and I don't know why I stumbled across it. I don't know how this came to be, but I decided to take a little look see, and wow, I was so enamored and filled with love and compassion with the art of the first game, the kind of style and aesthetic, and just the general history and all of the shiznazzeries. So I decided, all right, I've seen enough. Let me just go straight ahead as soon as possible in my free time to play Klonoa 1 for the original PlayStation. The reason being is because I did a little bit of additional research, and apparently, there is a remastered duology collection for the first two console Klonoa games. I think it's called the Fantasy Reverie series. Um, that came out a couple of years ago from this recording, more or less, and it's not exactly the same as the original. Aesthetically speaking, it's has a completely its own different art style, and also just game mechanics are tied to the frame rate. Um, and nothing, no system is ever could possibly be 100% consistent. I don't want my gameplay to be hindering based off of frame rate just because I want to try to jump around or whatever. I'm sure that wouldn't even be a problem for me because I have a very good uh, high, middle, low, high end type of computer. That's a stupid sentence. I have a really good computer that can play very demanding games, and I don't think that frame rate thing would be a problem. But at the same time, just the general art and aesthetics and vibe of the original was kind of getting lost on me when looking into which version of the game I should play. And so I decided, hey, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna play the PlayStation 1 original. So I'll hunt down a copy. And here we go. I played it. And I have lots of fun words. So, what is Klonoa as a game? So, it is a 2.5D platformer, or 2.5D platformer if you want to be a lamering lamerson. And what that means is that, think of like your typical Mario Yoshi type of thing where you can go left and right and jump and so on and so forth. However, in this case, we have a 3D plane. So you can still go left to right, but you can interact with elements of the environment that's either going towards the camera or like behind the camera, or at least behind like the area where you're standing. And then also whenever you move from row to row, and that's not really a good way to put it. There's points in some of the levels where you can go from like one kind of track, like one left and right plane, to another, and it's super interesting. It never gets too complicated. There's only one level where I kind of felt intimidated by its design, but overall it's kept to a very manageable degree, no matter your skill level may be for platformers or games in general. And I think it does it really well. It's really engaging with its environment and how it wants you to interact with it. And it's just a very, very pleasant thing overall. And I just really love the gameplay. It's just really fun, really great. It isn't super hard. There are some moments where I'm like, okay, I gotta be careful and I gotta try to, play the game well, but nothing that I don't think anyone who isn't the best at platformers can't overcome. Maybe some, difficult challenges, but nothing that make or would want to make you feel super frustrated. Also, the game is really fair overall. It's very finely crafted. Whenever you made a mistake, 9 times out of 10, if not every single instance, it is your fault, and the game makes it feel like your fault, but not in a mean way. It's just very good at handling your inputs and just letting you explore the world and such. Besides going left to right and jumping between different, like, I guess, paths, roads, like intervals, things like that, you also have a little bit of a flutter jump. It mostly stays in one place in the air. You can move it a little left to right, but it isn't going to save you from any big chasms like a Yoshi platformer, for example. And also, you have this magical ring that lets you shoot out a little green orb and makes you inflate the enemy. And you're able to throw the enemy left or right, behind you, in front of you, in terms of the camera perspective, or use the enemy as an additional platform to jump off of. And don't mind me. Listen, I am not crazy about the whole, like, oh, big round inflation. It is what it is. I just kind of look at it and be like, okay, all right. It got me rubbing my neck here, and and if you don't know why I'm kind of like hand wavy about this subject, bless your soul. I am so happy for you. Never go to DeviantArt. For people who do know, be tame about this, okay? Our protagonist here is definitely a child, as stated in the game itself, and don't make it a little creepy thing, alright? Just, he makes enemies blow up, okay? And he can use them to his advantage, and it's really, really cool. Has some pretty fun, unique scenarios with them that no other game I've ever seen done, even though I've been very familiar with platformers, both high budget and indie, just because not a lot usually take this idea or this approach for platforming, especially using enemies as a platform in midair in such a way. It is very unique to this series, and I adore that. And one thing I also adore, besides the gameplay itself and just the general charm and whimsy of this beautiful world, is the animations. They're not the craziest thing in the world. I mean, we're talking about 2D sprites in a 3D environment, which, by the way, it doesn't feel kind of weird or off-putting. They're made to work such a way that is very, like one and integral with the world. Like it's an artistic choice that I adore and just works splendidly. But besides that, the animations of the characters and enemies and whatever the case may be themselves is splendid. It's very fun, really interesting, very charismatic and expressive as well. More expressive than I thought it would be. I know this was made by Bandai Namco, otherwise known as the Pac-Man people, but I wasn't really expecting a lot out of like general aesthetics in terms of how varied they may be or whatever. But it seems like, Namco at the time really, really wanted to make this something special, something wonderful, make it a little mascot thing. And according to my research, it did fairly well in Japan, and it kind of was a gaming sensation quite a bit for a decent while after its release. Nothing amongst the likes of Mario and Sonic in terms of iconic gaming mascots. I guess Crash Bandicoot would also be, in the public zeitgeist at that point in time as well. But the general idea is that it did fairly well for itself, and I think one thing that definitely helped push Klonoa and its initial popularity at the time was its expressiveness with characters and its animation. It just looks so fun and so wonderful. Don't expect anything that will blow you away. Have moderate expectations, but still, it's just so nice and lovely, and just the little details and everything, and the sprite work is something that I dearly adore and greatly appreciate. Like everyone of the art team, you all need to give yourselves a pat on the back for this one. You all did so splendidly wonderful, and I'm very glad I get to experience the initial original envision, the way it was intended. So I'm very happy to see that. And the animations, themselves are the most expressive during the cutscenes. Yeah, a platformer game that really prioritizes its cutscenes and storytelling. Very interesting and not very, common at all at this point in time of gaming history. But hey, I'm super happy that Klonoa did this. Not only because the animations are awesome, but also because the story and it tells is so lovely. This is definitely one of those games where the less you know, the better it will be, because the more there is to explore and to discover on your own right. And this isn't the longest game in the world. It is a fairly short adventure. You can probably beat it in 1 to 2 settings, no, sittings rather, if you really tried hard enough to, skimp on through. But so to say, wow, what lovely cutscenes and very charismatic story that went to places I really wasn't expecting. I'm not going to get into that for now. There will be a spoiler section later on in this episode, but just know that I love the story. And man, those cutscenes are pretty, well, really, really well made. Also, something of note is that they have cutscenes relating to the story and such and so forth during the levels. Maybe it would happen once or twice per level. If that's the kind of thing that annoys you, maybe for speedrunning purposes or whatever the case may be happy to know that once you beat the game, you will be able to replay any level that you'd want, including boss fights, and you can not have to worry about that. It just isn't there. It's like during your first playthrough, you get a whole shebang experience, and then if you want to replay these levels, you don't have to worry about the story but stopping you in the way. It's kind of like a non-canon revisit type of thing. Um, I would personally like to have the option of, mid-level cutscenes be turned on and off. I don't know if that's something that added in the Wii remake then to be 2022 remaster of this game. But, it really is a nothing burger complaint. I don't even think that's big of a deal. If I were to want to re-experience the story, I would just replay through the entire game again, which is something I am very much looking forward to doing in the future, whenever they may be, because I had such a great time and I would love to relive this story sometime in the future. I don't really like to replay games all too often, and if I do, it's either got to have fantastic, phenomenal gameplay or just something else that really grips me to come back. And I'm happy to say that after one just casual playthrough of Klonoa, I am itching not only for more, but to re-experience it again later in life. I am honestly envious of people who grew up with this game or was there when it came out. It is so amazing, and I can only imagine how much it enriched you and your enjoyment and just the series, or just you know general ideas and storytelling, or whatever the case may be, because it's just lovely. And I'm a little jealous, okay? I know a friend in particular who grew up during this era of gaming, and Klonoa was one of those games that she grew up with, and dang, oh, I wish that was you. Well, I wish that was me. You, me, I wish me was you, alright? That's what I'm trying to mean. But, besides the story, and all that shiznaz, what about the characters? Ah, they're great. Klonoa himself is such a lovely young lad, such a lovely, amazing character, and he isn't just one of those like goody two shoes happy type of character. He is, sure, he is the very wahoo, but besides the Mr. Wahoo, he also has other emotions. He's allowed to feel sad. He's allowed to feel angry, confused. Like, he isn't just a one note whatever. He is able to be a character. He isn't a self insert. He's able to be his own thing. I don't have problems with self inserts. That is not something I really complain about. But I love it when any media, especially games, lets the characters be their own people, and I just love it a lot. And with platformers, you rarely get that. Like, Mario's kind of self-insertish. I mean, he has his own character traits, but overall, he doesn't speak a lot of, words or sentences, because Nintendo has a mandate, I believe, just to make Mario, more like generic in terms of personality to an extent, so people can project themselves onto them. And then we have Sonic the Hedgehog, who was very much his own character. Um, so that's pretty nice over there. But I don't know. There's just something different and special with Klonoa, where it's just like out the gate on his first outing, he's able to be so many things in terms of being an actual person on his own, and getting to see his just pure and raw and very reasonable and realistic, what do you even want to call it? Like emotions, experiences, reactions, even of what's happening in the story in real time, is something that I greatly adore. And another thing that helps me adore it is the voices of the characters. Some of them are a little bit annoying. It does that Nintendo thing where it's like silly little voice clips, so it might be like, but most of them are really, really charming and very lovely and not annoying. There's a couple that I'm like, okay, you're kind of pushing it a bit, but these cutscenes don't last super long, and you can even skip them if you want to. But it's just lovely, charismatic stuff. And despite the fact they're not even speaking a real language, technically, they're able to convey so much emotion and life out of these performances. It is so wonderful how these characters express themselves through their voice beyond just the text. Like, you might not now, you might not know what they're saying with the voice samples that are blurting out of their bodies, but you can tell how they're feeling in more emotional moments because of how they express themselves. And that is something I dearly adore. You don't really get both in this kind of like voice sample type of sounds, character sound thingies. I don't even know what you would call that. Like, you just don't get that with these kind of things. Here you do, and it gives such a Nintendo vibe. Like, this is the kind of thing I would expect Nintendo to do, but I don't think they've ever done something like this to this caliber. And to see Namco at the time just go for it, well, not the whole company, but the dev team rather, and whoever was the creative decisioners and so on and so forth. Whatever, it's just awesome. I love it a lot, is what I'm trying to say. And I greatly think it was lovely. It just is a whole other reason why this experience is nothing like anything else was, before it. And why it's very treasured by many. I'm, just playing through the game for 1 hour, even less than that, made it so obvious to me of why this game was so, loved and able to still have a passionate community despite the series being mostly dormant for quite a while. But besides all that, let's talk about the other what do you even call, like, sections or like stuff in the game. We have bosses. There's bosses in this game. They're pretty all right. I'm not crazy about bosses in general in video games, but these bosses are perfectly cool. I enjoyed them. The final boss was a little bit difficult and a little bit annoying, but besides that, I thought it was a good challenge. I enjoyed it. Other than that, bosses are really well. There was one fairly early on that I kind of felt like didn't explain well enough what to do. That could totally just be me missing something or just not thinking too hard, so I'm not even going to blame the game for that. Overall, these bosses are telegraphed really well and usually have good music accompanying them, especially the first boss in the game. Oh my gosh, that track, it lives rent free in my mind. I cannot stop thinking about it since the first time I played the game. It is so good. And just in general, the music in this game is very fun. It's very charismatic and, makes you want to keep experiencing all the sights and sounds and whatever else there is to see. It basically keeps pushing you forward, and I really appreciate that. Even though this is a slightly more slower paced platformer, I really appreciate the fact that all the elements that the game presents to you keeps pushing you forward, including the game itself. The game, um, when you finish a level, you get a little celebration like woohoo, and then you get just pushed right on to the next level. There isn't a level select; it just keeps you going, and I really like that. You do get a level select after beating the game, of course, to replay the levels, but besides that, during your first adventure through on a new save file, it just keeps on pushing you on forward. It really makes you get into the game. For me, it got me super duper invested. It just helped me keep going because of the constant flow, and it's something I greatly enjoy. I don't need all platformers to do that. I enjoy little hub worlds or like level select menus. That's perfectly fine. But for a shorter experience like this, that of course eventually later lets me pick and choose what levels I want to replay for whatever reason, I greatly appreciate this. It just really made going through everything just snappy. Like, it keeps you playing, it keeps you invested. There is never a dull moment besides, well, finishing a level, having a little nice music jingle celebration, and then saving your game. That's about it. That takes less than a minute. Now you're right back into the gameplay. It's so great. I adore it very, very dearly. Clearly, as you can tell. Another thing of note I want to say before going into the spoiler section is the sound effects. This game has the most 90s or like super early internet ass sound effects I have ever heard in any piece of media in the best way possible. Just the little sounds and everything is so lovely. Like, my favorite sound of the game is when you collect a main collectible. That just is so wonderful ear candy. I greatly adore how it sounds, and I just, this is another thing that lives rent free in my mind. Even past me playing the game, I just greatly enjoy it. It's fun. Every piece of this experience really feels finely and lovingly made, and I am so glad that's the case because it makes it an unforgettable experience. Seriously, if you have not played Klonoa Door to Phantomile, get yourself a PlayStation 1 copy and play it as soon as possible. This is definitely one of those games that I recommend to all gamers. Even if you don't necessarily like the platformer genre, it's a wonderful time and it's going to be over before you know it. So, spend a couple hours trying something new. You can always come back to your CODs or your Smashes or whatever later. Just enjoy some good, lovely, and relatively quick adventure, and hey, you might find something that you would adore for, all of time to come. That's how I feel about it, and yeah, it is something I dearly appreciate, and I want to just give a really clear and sincere thank you to everyone who made this game possible. You all are wonderful, and whatever you're doing nowadays, I hope you prosper and enjoy whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be related to game development. Like, you all are wonderful, creative people, and I really hope you're living the best lives out there. Even though you're probably not listening to this, since I'm pretty sure this was made by a Japanese studio, but whatever. Just wanted to throw that out there because that is how much I love this game. So, I'm going to be getting into spoilers now. If that's like something that you should be concerned of because you haven't played this game yet, for free, feel free to leave this episode. Thank you so much for coming by. I greatly appreciate it. Get out of here, or else you're gonna not. Man, I know spoilers isn't like the biggest problem of the world. There's a lot of horrible issues happening right outside everyone's homes for the most part. But all the same, when it comes to media, I really care about knowing when is too much and when isn't. Because when someone experiences something for the first time and they fall in love with it, the less they know, the more impactful that experience is. Not everyone's like that, but it certainly is for me. So that's why I care about spoilers so much and trying to have a clear divide between, hey, here's just my general thoughts on the whole thing, and then here's the bonus. Here's the real meat and juice. And even then, I don't have like the most to say about the spoiler stuff, but I still want to get it out there because I just have to. Anyway, spoilers begin now. So, who was expecting their grandpa to die? Okay, so I gotta say, I am genuinely really appalled, very just unbelievably, and just I don't even have a word for it right now. I'm just so inspired, I guess, and so interested and so everything about Klonoa voice performances, as I mentioned before, but specifically here, especially with the grandpa death scene and then the big reveal at the end, and Klonoa just denying reality and just wanting things to go back to usual and normal and everything. It all hit me like a truck. I didn't cry, and this isn't me like bragging or anything, okay? Like, I didn't cry, but those two moments brought me so close to crying, especially the second one. The first one, we didn't really know that grandpa character too much, but just a general idea of here's an innocent, child, protagonist going out trying to save the world and whatnot, and then his grandpa just dies. Like that alone, it just hits you hard, especially because if the game is doing its thing right, which it is, you're already loving and endearing our protagonist just for being a lovely little bundle of joy, and did not deserve that. Also, is his grandpa even real? I mean, like, okay. If the general plot twist, if you don't know, is that it is revealed that nothing that happened in terms of what happened in the past was actually real with Klonoa, in terms of him meeting his sidekick character, or rather more understandably title would be more like a companion, like because the Klonoa's like close companion Hupo. um like them meeting was completely fabricated, and just like fake memories was implanted in Klonoa for Klonoa to help Hupo basically save that world from the main villain. And so that makes me think, is Klonoa's grandpa even real, or is he also a fabrication? But if he's a fabrication, that's even more fucked up because like you planted, the fake memories of this random ass old guy for this kid to think it's his grandpa, and then he dies, and he feels sad about it. Like, what the crap? Like, of course that isn't like, I'm not saying Hupo is bad or anything. I like Hupo. He's a great character as well. But I'm just saying, if that's the case, that is horribly awful. But besides that, wow, just Klonoa's scream of agony in both scenarios, rather, like both happenings, really hit. especially that final scene of Klonoa trying to hang on so hard onto the ring, and Hupo trying to grab onto it too, and then he gets sucked out to a portal, and that's just the end. You saved the world, and then fuck you, go away forever. Who knows? I don't even know. Like, it's just so interesting, and it's like he did not deserve any of this. He did not deserve anything. He is such a strong and brave kid, and he just gets his entire world shattered around him, and before he knows it, it's over. And I can only imagine how he must be feeling. I don't know if Klonoa 2 directly follows this up. I mean, I know it's a direct sequel, but I wonder how it would handle this, exploring Klonoa as a character. I'm kind of expecting it not to, because that is quite a heavy topic. If it does, I would love to. I would love for Klonoa to be like, I remember this friend, I had before this adventure that I'm going on with my new companions now. And, it's kind of crazy what happened. And, I don't, whatever the case may be, I just really would love a moment like that. I really don't know. I have not played any other Klonoa game, but that ending really, really got me. And then you have like a really nice and pleasant, like end credits song. And then, you have like screenshots of like what happened throughout your journey kind of thing. You can't just do that. Like, I love how ballsy it is for the game to have a strong, just bitter ending. I mean, it's bittersweet in a way, but it's mostly bitter. Usually, platformers for children are not that harsh in terms of stories, if they even have stories. That is such a strong, prolific move, and I genuinely just am surprised. I never thought it would do something like that. Like, I heard the story could get a little wild, prior over the years, but I didn't expect it just to end on a sour note. That is awesome. I don't want all games to end on sour notes. That isn't something I want. I'm not trying to be all angst up, but I'm just saying some of my favorite stories and media do have sour endings, and sometimes I don't want things to end perfectly happy. I want some consequences for characters' actions, or in this case, completely fuck over our main protagonist just because he's a fantastic person, and then the world literally rejects him. He just gets thrown out. It's awful, but in a good way. It's awful for him as a character in a good way, and it's done in such a way where it doesn't feel like you undermined everything. Like, the final conversation Klonoa and Hupo have really hits you. When it starts, maybe you get comfortable and be like, "Oh, this is such a nice end of story scene," and then you get the bombshell realization of what happened. It's like, oh no, oh, and all of it is wonderful. Such a great ending to such a fantastic game. And it's going to stick with me. The whole story, but especially that ending, is going to stick with me for a long, long time. And I just simply am wowed. I'm not going to expect Klonoa 2 to match that amount of surprise and maybe even just enjoyment in general. I'm going to go into it and I'm going to expect really fun gameplay. I'm going to expect a decently good story, but I'm not going to expect it to top this, especially because it just happens. And not like out of nowhere bullshit kind of happened, but you kind of get hints over the story that, something isn't right. Some dialogue that you get is like, I don't know what's happening. Maybe you think, oh, it's just a little whimsical, like, oh, haha, platformer, things happen kind of thing. And then it has more meaning. And then you're like, oh, so that's why I'm the strange dream. It's literally what's happening in a way. Oh, so good. Great writing and just great execution overall. So yeah, I adore Klonoa. What's new? But besides that, I also want to talk about the 100% completion bonus that you get in this game if you collect every collectible, which I don't really talk about too much in the non-spoiler section, but pretty much it's just like creatures that live in this world, like there's 6 of them per level, besides the final boss, because it's a final boss. I think there's another level that doesn't do that. But either way, you get one last challenge, the extra vision. And basically it's just a nice little hard challenge. Well, I say little. It is quite a bit hard. I struggled just a decent bit with it. Not the hardest thing I've played. I would say, just for a general comparison, like the secret bonus levels of Super Mario World on average is harder than this level, but that doesn't matter. It's a fun little challenge and a really, really fun, way to cap off the adventure gameplay wise, if you want something a little more difficult to, chew on after it's over. Also, I really like how there was a cutscene here. Um, I'm assuming it takes place either like in a non-canon type of deal, or after the final boss, but before the final story cutscene. I genuinely was shocked that there was a little bit more. It's not like any new story was here. It's a really small but really cute little bonus story that you get, involving a few of our pre-existing characters. And it's just for the funsies. I did not know about any of that though. And I did know that there was this final level, which is, because I looked into what do you get for 100% in Klonoa, and that's what you get. And if you beat the level, you also get, a music box that can play the entire OST. But besides that, I didn't even know there was more, so I genuinely was so happy to see these characters again, like just interacting and everything, because I thought that's it. Klonoa is, canonically speaking, out of this world, and probably will never see these people again, I'm assuming, but no, we get a little bit more. And even though it's a little silly thing, a little side, most likely a non-canon thing, just seeing that made me so happy. And yeah, that's when you have a very strong cast of characters, or just general, just vibe, like admiration that someone grows like instantly and connects and bonds with a piece of media, where you find something else that's new and official, like along with the original experience or whatever experience that you enjoyed, and it makes you incredibly happy just right off the bat. That is a special feeling that I don't get with a lot of media immediately, but I'm so happy that I have it here because what can I say? I loved it. And with that, that's pretty much everything I have to say about Klonoa Door to Phantomile. Um, yeah, it's a great game, and I am dearly looking into playing the rest of the series. I will be playing Klonoa 2 before the end of the year. I don't know when that might be, but I really want to do that because it's just so interesting. I have a lot of other wonderful games to play. Mario and Luigi Brothers Ship is about to release when I'm recording this, so I'll have my hands full with that and other games that I'm interested in. But when I get out that all the way, when I get tired of those games, Klonoa 2 is the first thing I'm going to run to. But for now, I'm enjoying other media, and I want to space out my Klonoa adventures because I don't want to have too much of a fantastic thing, You got to spread the peak around, I'll also be playing the Game Boy Advance games. There's a couple of platformers on there. There's also a real-time action RPG on GBA that got fan translation because it didn't get localized in the West. That's cool. There's one for this old device called the Wonder Swan. Yeah, I heard it's not great, but it's Klonoa. I gotta see it now. I'm in too deep now. I'm really into it. I am very autistically attached to Klonoa now, so I will be playing that Wonder Swan game eventually. And of course, Klonoa Volleyball. Well, how could I not? So yeah, I'll get around to that whenever I have the feeling, the strong, overwhelming feeling, and of course have the time and not busy with other things I want to do. But just know that my Klonoa adventure is just beginning, and I am over the moon about it. Over the freaking dickin' moon. All right, that's a bit all. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. This is definitely more of a sloppy episode. I apologize. I am half tired. It's been a bit of a weird day, but, can't always be perfect, and I really want to get my thoughts out there. So hopefully you didn't mind my strange vocabularyism. I mean, I usually have that problem. I do have neurodivergent disabilities after all, so sorry if that bothers you, but that's never going to change. And editing takes like 1,000 years, and I don't want to do that. So sorry, bleh. Anyway, goodbye. Bye.